What's going on, everyone? So the Lakers just cannot catch a break when it comes to injuries, right? All season, the Lakers have been just dealing with injury after injury, guys in and out of the lineup. D'Angelo Russell, he was one of the few guys that played all the way up until this point. He gets hurt. He's now missing games. Rui Hachimura has kind of been in and out of the lineup all year. Gabe Vincent's only played like 5 games this season. You had Jared Vanderbilt out for a long time. Injuries have been a real problem. Now, look, the Lakers have been mid regardless, but it's something that definitely, I think, hurts the Lakers as a whole in building chemistry, developing, that okay, here's your role. When guys are in and out of the lineup, it becomes tough. But the other real concern is you have D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, and Gabe Vincent, 3 guys that were all very likely to be traded at some point this season, all out with injuries for various reasons. And the question is that going to impact any potential trade that the Lakers may or may not make, right? Because look, how many teams are going to want to trade for Rui if he's out for 3 months? Or D'Lo if he's out for several months? Obviously Gabe Vincent's out till probably mid-February, maybe the beginning of March, right? So it's like, how many teams are going to be lining up to go trade for these guys? Now, personally, Gabe Vincent, that could be a real question mark, right? But any Gabe Vincent trade is probably just going to be a tack-on trade, like to match salaries, or, hey, we're going to do this other offset trade here, right? So just use that as an example. Let's say like the Brooklyn Nets, and you get like Royce O'Neal and Dorian Finney-Smith and something else, right? So like Gabe Vincent would just be like the added, it's like, okay, man, if he gets healthy, we get to the playoffs, he could be a solid piece, but we don't really need him necessarily right now. Maybe we look for him to trade, or maybe it's a 3-team deal or whatever, right? Gabe Vincent, to me, I think is going to be more salary, right? Like, he's never really been this great playoff or regular season player. He's always kind of been like, hey, this guy shows up big in the playoffs. So any team that does value Gabe Vincent and wants to bring him in, obviously is going to look at that as like, okay, he's a playoff guy. Like we would want him for the playoffs. Obviously, you want him to play. You want him to get familiar with the players on your team. You want him to kind of, get familiar with the system and stuff. But all the teams that we are potentially trading with, none of them are winning this year anyway, right? Like Chicago, if we go and trade for Zach LaVine, like Chicago's not winning a chip this year, and that's not really their plan. Their plan is to kind of figure it out and then see like, okay, what direction are we going to go in the offseason? Now, D'Lo and Rui, I don't think it impacts their value at all because neither are a significant injury, right? The Rui thing, it was reported that it was more just caution, right? Because again, he's probably getting traded. So you don't want him to play through a calf strain and then now he ends up tearing something, or it gets worse, he becomes a high grade, and now it's like he's out for the rest of the season. It's like, well, now no team is going to trade for him, right? So, again, a lot of it is precaution. It makes sense that they would be precautious. There were even reports that Rui was fine, was walking by himself. He didn't have a limp. He was walking normal. Like, there was all the signs you look for of like, hey, that could be something significant. That's something to watch out for. All of that seemed to check off and was good. And we haven't gotten any like report that like, hey, Rui's going to miss 8 weeks or whatever. Rui seems to be day to day. My guess is that they kind of keep him out as long as they can, right? Maybe bring him back a little less if a team wants to like, hey, we're interested in Rui, but, we want to see him play a couple games just to make sure he's okay. Then I think they bring him back. Same thing with D'Lo. Like, right, D'Lo is more likely than not just going to be the salary, right? Like, again, say you do a Chicago trade for Zach LaVine. Right, Chicago's probably not looking at D'Lo as like, oh man, that's the prize piece. They're looking at like Rui Hachimura. We get off of Zach LaVine's contract. What else can we, take from the Lakers? Can we get a protected first or a couple seconds or whatever? Their job is going to be to try to get as much as they can from the Lakers, but they're going to have to take out on some salary, even if they trade him elsewhere. Right, like let's say they trade him to a Miami or whatever, a Sixers team or something like that, right? Like any team you work out a deal with, you're going to have to take back probably not a favorable contract. Obviously, you want to get a contract that's not long-term. Well, D'Lo more likely than not, especially if he doesn't have a real role with Chicago, is probably going to opt out So you'll be able to clear off that money you get out of Zach LaVine, right? To them, it would be like, oh, hey, let's go get a Rui Hachimura. Also, when it comes to Rui and D'Lo specifically, like, there's nothing they're going to do that's going to change their value, right? Like, teams kind of know, okay, this is what they are. Like, D'Lo's been in the league long enough to where you know what D'Lo is, the kind of player that D'Lo is. Rui, yes, he is a bit more of a question mark. I do think, like, if he got a more prominent role, he could be a real impact player in the right situation. Like, one of the teams that I really would love to see him on, it's kind of why I want, like, a 3-team deal, is the Brooklyn Nets. Like, I think he would be fantastic on Brooklyn over, like, Chicago. I think he'd be good in Chicago, too. But I think Brooklyn, right, like, he could immediately be their starting 4. I think he'd get real opportunity. He'd be one of their few, like, low post threats, right? Where, look at Chicago, like, they have Vu, and then they're still going to have, like, DeMar DeRozan, Kobe White. Like, they got a lot of guys that are going to be taking a bunch of shots. But point is that, like, D'Lo and Rui specifically, they're, like, what are they going to do that's going to make a team go, oh, man, let me sell like, nothing, right? No team, like, you kind of know what they are. You know that there's a little more potential than what you're seeing with the Lakers, but more likely than not, any deal that the Lakers make, because they are so limited on assets, are going to be a kind of win-win for both sides, right? Like, so again, Chicago, we need to get off of Zach LaVine. We can't bring Zach LaVine back. Our team has been cruising since we got rid of Zach LaVine. He's a $40 million contract, so there's only going to be a couple teams, if that are interested in Zach LaVine, right? There was a recent report that just came out that said the Sixers may have interest in Zach LaVine, but they have concerns about the fit, right? Which is what I've said. The Sacramento, who are the teams? It's like Sacramento, the Sixers, the Knicks. You see several of these teams that keep coming out of the woodworks, right? That team that they're like, oh, they may have interest in Zach LaVine. All those teams I've said, he makes zero sense for. Right? Like Sacramento, they have De'Aaron Fox, right? Like, they don't need another ISO volume shooter guy, slasher, get to the basket type guy. They already have that in Fox. They need to upgrade, like, their wing position. Like, they should have been all in on trying to go get, like, an OG Anunoby, right? Go get something like that. Like, they have other needs that they need to address, not Zach LaVine. Their offense isn't the problem. They need to be able to stop guys. They need more complementary pieces. Like, if they could upgrade Harrison Barnes. You look at a team, again, like, Sixers team. Like, they got Maxey. They don't even necessarily need another superstar, right? Go get some complementary pieces. Go get some people. Like, if they could get, like, a Pascal Siakam, I think would make sense for them, right? Because they have, like, the shooting. They have several guys giving you 20 a night. They need, like, that defensive 3-and-D guy that can make plays, allow Maxey to be Maxey, allow Embiid to be Embiid, right? Like, any team that's looking for Chicago and Zach LaVine, it's a team that desperately lacks that, like, true scorer and athletic guard. Like, a team that I do think that makes sense for Zach LaVine, I just don't think they'd ever trade for him, is Miami, right? Miami could use Zach LaVine, right? That consistent go-to scorer, that guy that could just go get you buckets, give you some athleticism at the guard position, right? Complement Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Like, I think he makes sense, but I think they'll wait for, like, Donovan Mitchell or something like that. I don't think they're going to want to invest in a Zach LaVine. So to me, it's Miami and the Lakers are the only two teams that really make sense. I don't see Miami doing anything, right? Of course, there's going to be, like, reports of this team or that team or whatever, right? Because if all it is like, hey, the Lakers are the only team that wants Zach LaVine, well, guess what? If you have no one else, guess who has all the power? The Lakers. It's like, well, you need to get rid of Zach LaVine. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to bring him back and play him? You're going to send Kobe White back to the bench after he's been killing? So instead of rewarding him, you're going to punish him? Right? Okay. And then on top of that, he doesn't get along with Billy Donovan in the front office and all this stuff. Like, hey, if you want that, go ahead, keep him. Right? Do we need Zach LaVine? Absolutely. But we can wait. Right? I think it'll also come down to, like, where are the Lakers at come the trade deadline? Right? If the Lakers are, like, 3 games under 500, something like that, and it's, like, bad, then yeah. Right? Then yeah, maybe the Lakers are more desperation. But this January stretch is very favorable for them. So if they're like 5, 6, 7 games over 500, it's like, well, look, we don't have to trade for Zach LaVine. We can wait. We can be patient. We can kind of upgrade around the edges And then guess what? In the offseason, we'd have 3 tradable first round picks. We can make our move then for that other star if need be. So guess what? Right? Like, but if you have several teams, it's like, well, hey, Lakers, who knows who's going to be available? Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to go on? Right? Like, you guys are 4 games under 500. You guys aren't even going to make the play-in at this point. Right? It just depends on where both sides are at come that time. And I personally do lean towards the Lakers are going to end up trading for Zach LaVine. If the Lakers are trading for Zach LaVine, then again, Chicago's not going to care. Right? They're not going to have a need for Gabe Vincent anyway. So, like, they're just taking him out because they have to match salaries, right? So, it's like, okay, well, Gabe Vincent is on a reasonable salary. He's not breaking the bank. He would be solid if we got into the playoffs. But more likely than not, we could always look to just move him elsewhere, or maybe there's a 3-team deal involved, right? I almost lean more towards there will probably be a 3-team deal over just like a straight-up Zach LaVine for the Lakers, right? Like, again, like the Brooklyn Nets. I could see Brooklyn going like, hey, we really want Rui, right? Because he makes sense for them. So, like, give us Rui, right? And give us, we'll take Gabe. We like Gabe Vincent. I'm not saying that they would, but, maybe they're like, hey, we like Gabe Vincent. We're probably going to lose Spencer Dinwiddie in the offseason. He gives us a cheap, just in case we can't get anybody type guard. Like, okay, tell you what, you take Lakers, you can take Royce O'Neal, you could take, Zach LaVine, and we'll send, Dorian Finney-Smith and whatever else, D'Lo, and we'll throw in another guy, and you give us Rui, and then a first goes somewhere, right? My point is, I'm doing this on the fly, so point is that, like, I could see something like that where the Lakers get, like, an Andre Drummond, Zach LaVine, and, like, a Royce O'Neal, and, like, Rui, D'Lo, Gabe, Jalen Hood-Schifino, and, like, Maxwell Lewis or something are all going to various places. And it's like, okay, Lakers got their pieces. The Nets got guys that they like. Chicago, they got off of LaVine's contract. They got like a first and some, other tradable things. Maybe they can go make a move or wait till the offseason, go make a move at the offseason, right? Like, that's kind of how I see this develop. But I don't think any of these guys are going to change any type of trade or trade value for the Lakers. I just don't. I think that all of these guys are basically pretty much set in their value, pretty much set in their ways. It's just, obviously, again, if Rui was set to miss, a month and a half, 2 months, then maybe, but at least at the time of recording this video, it doesn't look like there's any significant injuries to either of these two, right? Gabe Vincent is supposed to be back at some point. The surgery, it wasn't like a surgery that's known to inquiries or anything like that. It's a surgery that is very run-of-the-mill, like, hey, you get this done, you drain it, and then he'll be good. He'll be back to normal. So I don't think that this will be an impact. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you agree? Do you feel the same way? Do you think, no, like, hey, this really could? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.